Right, another one from David Payne.
Our friend David Payne.
Yeah, teammate David Payne. Bobby Moore-esque, I called him this week. He says, does success at London 2012, or rather Team GB success at London 2012, counter old-timers' arguments that the standard ain't as good as it used to be?
John?
Well, it's hard to say. You can compare different eras. I mean, the amateur boxing has become increasingly different from pro boxing. So what GB have were kind of specialist Olympic boxers. So if, I'm sure a lot of them will go pro, and then if they then do very well as pros, then you can say, things are better than ever. But then
they're more different now than in the old days, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the transition will be harder.
And what do you think? You've followed amateur boxing for a long time.
So what was the question again?
Does success at London 2012, Team GB success, counter old-timers' arguments that the standard ain't as good as it used to be? I mean, how do you think the standard compares at 2012, we say, when you watched amateur boxing in 1996, for example, if we go back?
We had this debate on the forum, actually, and I think Herbie said the fact that the former Soviet Republic is now split up into so many countries makes it actually harder to win a medal. But the fact is, the talent is thinner on the ground than in days gone by, I believe. But
right, okay.
I think that the point is that amateurs and pros are more different now than what they used to be.
Yeah.
So it's harder to make the transition from successful amateur to successful pro.
With regards to Team GB though, how do you think, and this for both of you, how do you think Rob McCracken's involvement will make that transition easier for the guys who've been on the squad?
Well, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean
his knowledge of the pros and the amateurs is huge.
And also what they get on the squad is the full kind of backup from sports science, nutrition, psychology, all that kind of stuff, which will stand them in good stead for their future, because they'll kind of have that extra knowledge given to them by the program they've got there.
It's a much more professional setup, isn't it, than what it used to be. Amateur boxing used to be, they'd have a day job and would box in their spare time, but now they're full time, well, not pros, but
they've been training professionally, really.
I remember Richie Woodall likes to tell that story that Henry Akin one day had to give up his dole monies to box in the Olympics. So it just speaks volumes, doesn't it, about how far it's come on.
And something else interesting that's developed in the amateur side is the World Series of Boxing, the WSB, and New Era ABC tweeted, "Are AIBA undermining amateur boxing by introducing the WSB?" And what do you? I mean, you're a bit more familiar with the WSB than the rest of us. What do you think about that?
Well, it does kind of complicate the picture a bit. And the nice thing about amateur boxing was that it had one world champion at that came out of the World Championships. I suppose you've got to be clear that the World Series of Boxing, even though they have individual champions, are World Series champions. But then the problem amateur boxing had was losing lots of their top boxers who would turn over and go professional. So if it's a way of kind of hanging on to those athletes, then it's probably a good thing. Will it help them, prepare them for Olympic style competition? It is 5 rounds in the WSB. So even though there are quite a few WSB boxers in the Olympics, I don't know if it was the greatest preparation for them. But yeah, it's a way of getting amateurs funding, so it's probably a good thing. It will get more complicated when AIBA launch their own kind of version of professional boxing. Then they'll have a professional world champion and an amateur world champion, and that kind of remains to be seen what it'll be like, and will depend on the quality of boxer they sign up to it.
It's early days yet though, isn't it?
Yeah.
The worrying thing with the WSB is that they granted Olympic spots to their champions that weren't fulfilled, were they? Like Derevchenko. He qualified for the Olympics through the WSB, but Ukraine pulled him out.
Yeah, but
That undermines it a bit, doesn't it?
I suppose that undermines the WSB,
Yeah.
but you want your kind of national Olympic teams to have the ultimate say, and Ukraine obviously thought Kaitrov was better.
But surely they know that Derevchenko wouldn't be the #1. Ukraine wouldn't put him into the Olympics. It's weird.
Well, yeah, but he still got all the prize money out of winning it,
Yeah,
so
it's
he's
bit
just a
of no man's
WSB
land, isn't it?
boxer.
It's a bit, at the minute, they're not the elite amateurs, because the elite amateurs stay amateurs.
Yeah. But then the elite amateurs also get funding to stay amateurs,
Yeah,
so
like, I think it complicates it a bit, but it's exciting, isn't it?
yeah, it can
Fight's
be.
not good
Yeah.
that, you know, like in the amateurs they stop a fight if a guy gets a nosebleed or whatever, but WSB they go for it, don't
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
I don't know if we answered the question, mate.
I don't know, no, but you provided some valuable insight there, I think. Okay, let's move on to a question, and forgive me, Sean, I probably won't pronounce your surname correctly. Sean McKinney. It's a good question, though. It says, why is Roy Jones Jr.'s prime diminished by him fighting too long? Why do people, in our top 100, he was perhaps a lot further down than he would have been than if he'd retired, say, after the John Ruiz fight. Why do you think fighting on too long?
I think it's his legacy, not his prime, isn't it? His legacy's the
Yeah, but I mean, I think...
Yeah, I think the same applies to Evander Holyfield. I think what he's getting at, the same applies. The longer they fight on, the worse it is. And I think a lot of it's to do with how you remember them. And, you know, all the good memories are pushed further to the back, and you're left with this big chunk of sour memories.
Do you not think? I mean, a lot. There's not many fighters that just walked out and just left good memories. I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson. Okay, the end of his career wasn't as catastrophic as Roy Jones Jr.'s. He wasn't getting knocked out in one round by, you know, comparatively such inferior fighters, but he was losing as many as he was winning at the end. Do we focus on that when we look back on Sugar Ray Robinson, or do we focus on his five world middleweight titles or his world welterweight title?
I think what clouds the waters a little bit is, I mean, I know Evander Holyfield's had his financial problems, but those guys have all had a lot of money, and I think people wanted to see them retire at the top and sail off into the sunset because there's nothing more to fight for. You know, they've got millions of, you know, in theory, millions and millions in the bank. They've got legacy secure. They can just walk away, but it's just never that easy.
Yeah.
I think longevity plays a part. Because one of the criteria for the great fighters is how long they can compete at the high level. But with Jones, the bad part of his career is almost as long as the good part. So
Yeah, I think.
or it's becoming almost as.
But and I remember Evander Holyfield saying last year or the year before, you know, whatever I do in the future doesn't matter. It doesn't affect what I've done in the past because I've already done it. So if Evander Holyfield gets knocked out in the first round in the next few weeks, does that mean that we don't view his win over Mike Tyson as highly? I think that perhaps is what Sean's getting at with this question about Jones.
They can't help but cloud the issue, like Trish said, because if Jones had retired after the Ruiz fight, he'd be in the top 10 almost, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if you think just after that he dropped down and fought Tarver again, and he sort of scraped to a win, but he won nonetheless, and that was an astonishing feat to lose all that weight that he packed on and to drop back down. And I think that would have been the time where I'd like to have seen him. Then he fought Tarver again, and that was one fight too many, and then it was
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
If he'd have retired then, he would be looked at.
I mean, it's astonishing when you talk about the Olympics and stuff, as we have done, and mention Holyfield still fighting, that he was fighting in the Olympics at 84. Yeah. You know, it's just astonishing, isn't it? Absolutely astonishing. Yeah.
Okay, good question here from Lee Gibbons. Who had a 90s hit with Barbie Girl?
That's John's favourite song.
I think they had 3 number ones in a row, actually.
I think someone's been on Wikipedia.
What were the other hits?
I don't know what the other one. I know one of them, which I think it was in. In fact, right,
Calling Dr. Jones was a very good song.
But which one?
There's Dr. Jones one.
I think that might be one of them. Anyway, right, let's move on to a question from Paul Wicks. It's a good question, but you know, Anyway, how close are we getting to having a federal commission overseeing boxing? And he mentioned that Senator McCain raised it following Pac-Man Bradley, and it would be an ideal situation. But I mean, how is it? Tris, do you ever foresee a situation where there will be one body?
No, I don't. No, I just can't see it happening. I'd love it to be close, and I'd love it to be ready, you know, to go now. But you know, a lot of the power is with the promoters, and a lot of the power is with the TV networks. And you know, you're going to be asking a lot of very powerful people to surrender basically their careers and their power to hand it over to someone else. And I don't think anyone's interested in doing that. And I think, you know, it just works now it's going to work in waves. You know, we've seen Don King is, I think, at 80, he's 81 today, I think, or yesterday. He's obviously coming to winding down his career. You've got Bob Arum not far behind. But then after that, you've got people who, you know, like, just for example, like Golden Boy, when they come on the scene, you think, oh, they're young, they're vibrant, they're exciting, they're a new company, they're going to have new, fresh ideas. But inevitably, they just get stuck in a rut again. And yeah, they feed up, you know, same dross undercards with one main event, and if the main event tanks and the whole card's, you know, not worth it. You know, it's very rare that you've got sort of a card that's 4 or 5 deep anymore. You know, Don King in the 90s used to put on big bills, you know, and Sky used to televise double headers where you get sort of 8 or 9 title fights in a night and stuff. I mean, that's just not the way the business is going now. And I just think a federal commission, I think that there's just too much to be done. And I can't see the people in power surrendering the power that they've got.
I think that's what Dr. Wu's trying to do. John might be able to tell you more.
Well, yeah, I either want to be like for boxing what FIFA are to football, but you know, it would be good to have that maybe in an ideal world. But
Not an ideal world.
Well, yeah, it's not like all the other governing bodies are going to disappear anywhere. So.
And also, the amount of flack FIFA gets, it could just happen if they come in like similar thing in boxing.
Oh yeah, and IEBA gets plenty of flack too.
I mean, when you look at all of those organisations, they've all got flaws. You know, and there's, you know, whether it's down to drug testing, whether it's down to bad decisions or things like that.
For boxing, what FIFA are.
Maybe something like the ATP with tennis, something like that, where there's lots of regular drug testing, where the best fight the best or play the best all the time. So, you know, and where there's sort of rankings, which are, I think, based on, you know, a point system, which is done on, you know, results and events that you enter, that kind of thing.
That would be the advantage of having one governing body, wouldn't it? You could actually enforce those things. But I don't think.
And it could be one of those things, literally, where you start on a ladder until almost like a video game, where you start, you know, number 100 in the rankings, and if you want to fight someone, you've got to call out someone sort of 10 or 15 places above you to go up.
That's what you had to do in Barry McGuigan's boxing, the ZX Spectrum game in the late 1980s.
So what you're saying is Barry McGuigan should be in charge of all of boxing.
I think the worst people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. That's what I'm saying.
Right, so let's wrap this up. And the final question is from Paul Taylor. How many years has Boxing News been going? Shall I step in and answer this one, guys? I'll do this one. You're looking a bit blank-faced. 1909.
This year we're coming into our 104th year in September. So next month we're going to be 104 years old.
How long have you been here for most of them?
He's about 76, I think, hasn't he?
Longest staff member has been here, I think, 25 years, and one of his major first fights was Tyson Berbick that we discussed earlier. He was ringside for that. Yeah. So, but mind you, Nick, you've been here almost as long now, haven't you?
I'll do this one. You're looking a bit blank-faced. 1909 years.
How long do you feel like you've been here?
Since the beginning.
Since 1909.
Okay, well, thanks, guys, for getting involved with BNTV. I enjoyed that. It was good to have everyone around me. It was good. It's good. And hopefully we'll do that feature again. I think that was really good. So yeah, if anybody has got any questions for future episodes, have a think of them, and we'll do it again in the future. We'll be back next week. BNTV will be at the Matchroom event at the Hearn household at the barbecue. Yeah. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Get involved with all the best boxing banter at our forum, and that's forum.boxingnewsonline.net.